Coming up on Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley. The dynamic duo is live at Microsoft Ignite in Orlando, Florida, and they're bringing back a gaggle of news of Microsoft announcements. Bing has been kicked out of Siri. Microsoft is all in on the 365 strategy. It's the year of the Microsoft Graph. Machine learning and quantum computing take center stage, and Bing for Business has Paul buzzing. All this and Super Meat Girl coming up on Windows Weekly.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Windows Weekly is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley. Episode 537, recorded September 27th, 2017. Microsoft Ignite 2017. This episode of Windows Weekly is brought to you by Text Expander, the productivity multiplier from Smile Software. Text Expander is a knowledge base from which you can communicate quickly and accurately using a brief search or abbreviation. Try it free for 30 days at textexpander.com/Windows. It's time for Windows Weekly, everything you need to know about Microsoft, Windows, and Mary Jo's love for gaming. I am Father Robert Ballecer, the digital Jesuit, in for Leo Laporte, who is currently at looking for the Holy Grail or something somewhere over in Europe. And of course, we've got Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley coming straight to us from the Microsoft Ignite conference in Orlando, Florida. Paul, Mary Jo, how have you been? This has been a crazy week for Microsoft News.
Yep.
We're still standing, day 3.
And that's actually of note because last night was the meetup at the World of Beers, and I understand that a large amount of alcoholic beverage was imbibed.
Maybe.
I held up a couple of walls.
How are you even standing?
I usually have to prop myself up somehow.
Of course, Paul Thurrott is the purveyor of news, reviews, and analysis for tech enthusiasts at Thurrott.com. And Mary Jo Foley is the gentlewoman who pilots ZDNet's All About Microsoft blog. And together, they're here to give you news about Microsoft like the finest moonshine. Smooth, refreshing, a little kick, and just a 30% chance of blindness. Where should we start?
By the way, accurate, because this light is right in my face.
It's better if you can't see the audience. Just imagine that they're all naked.
Yeah.
Or not. Don't do that. Don't do that.
You haven't seen this audience. So.
Now, Paul, Mary Jo, one of the bits of news to come out of Ignite that got me excited was some of the new features that were announced for Microsoft 365. Are we going to do a rundown? Tell me what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a lot of enterprise news today. Not so much Cuphead.
I'm going to go for a walk.
You're going to help with this.
Okay.
Yeah, so we made a list of our top takeaways from Ignite, and I'm sure the audience, when we ask you for some live questions, will add some to this.
Mary Jo, we haven't
Yes.
started with the best news from the keynote.
Oh, which?
Which is Lee Chen Miller.
Yeah, I know. Everybody here who was at that keynote knows who that is.
I met her at breakfast today.
Yeah.
And like a jerk, I interrupted her because I had to. Donna Sarkar asked me to take a selfie with it, but I was too embarrassed to do it. But the thing I wanted to communicate, other than my complete idiocy, is that, actually, there is another example of that to come. She is exactly what she seemed like on stage. That is her. And she was over there high-fiving people and laughing and jumping up and down and all that stuff. I was so excited to meet her. I probably shouldn't say this out loud, but I walked out of the restaurant, I went back to my hotel room, and I worked for a little while, and I packed, and I came down here, and then I realized I never paid for breakfast.
Wait.
Yep.
Yeah.
Shooting screwed.
We're dined and dashed.
Yep. Not on purpose.
Yeah, so Padre might not know who we're talking about here if he didn't watch the full keynote.
Well, evidently, it's a person that can make Paul Thurrott commit a misdemeanor. So this must be exciting.
Yes. Yes, she was one of the demoers during the keynote, and she basically stole the show, I think, at the keynote. And she was showing a lot of the things that you can do with things like Bing for Business. That is so hard to say, by the way.
I know.
And some of the advanced AI capabilities that Microsoft's building into Office and into search across.
By the way, to be clear, what she just said is really boring, but this woman made it really interesting.
She did. She was funny, entertaining. Did a little Harman Kardon demo as part of it, showing off that Cortana speaker, which was pretty cool. Yeah, she was awesome. And I think you said it was her first big
She
presentation.
said to me, this is the first time I've ever given a speech in English. It's her second language.
Oh, wow.
And she was really nervous. And I said, well, I can assure you, you were way better than all the guys who spoke English as their first language. So
Now,
she was great.
Let me back that up a little bit. You said, Mary Jo, Bing for Business. Now, between the three of us, I think I'm the only one who uses Bing almost exclusively, right? So what does Bing for Business add?
It adds ads to your enterprise search results.
Oh, good.
No. No, that's not it.
Yeah. So if you, you know what Bing is, obviously, since you use it, Padre. There's going to be a way for administrators to flip a switch in Office 365 and let their users use Bing to search inside the company for results. So say you want to see an org chart or a floor plan or documents, certain documents you've been working on with other people, you'll just be able to go to Bing when you're logged in for Bing for Work, and those results will come up first in your search.
Yeah.
Okay, so
It sounds silly, but then you see it demoed, and actually, this is a really cool idea.
I know.
Now, Google tried that over a decade ago. They had the Google Search appliance that you could bring inside of your firewall.
Right.
It just never took off.
This is different because it uses machine learning and AI on the back end to understand the query and understand the integration you have with whatever services you've enabled. And so it could be an HR type query. It could be any sort of corporate data you might have. But it's kind of contextually aware and smart. And again, like I said, the notion of something called Bing for Business doesn't make sense to me until you see what it is. And it's a really nice way to bring natural language into the equation because you, as an employee, might not know where that data is that you need to access. You don't know who to ask about a particular thing. And when you can do it this way, you can just find out very easily.
How much more functionality does that give me over just using the Microsoft Voice Assistant? Because I can do that right now. I can either call up Cortana or I can hit my Windows key and start typing, and it will search my local computer and my local network. So what Bing for Business is just that?
I mean, obviously, you could have your calendar attached to Cortana, and it could give you information about your next meeting. It's not that stuff. It's other corporate, well, I mean, it could be that stuff too, but it's more about corporate resources that normally you would have to get on the phone and call someone and say, hey, what's the policy about vacation time? Or, you know, it's HR stuff, it's corporate data. So it's actually quite a bit more powerful.
Right. So the idea that they're going for is wherever you are in, whether it's Outlook or My Analytics or SharePoint, OneDrive, Windows, or Bing for Business, you're going to be able to do this kind of a search. So they're trying to bring search to where you are so you don't have to stop, open a browser, go search. They're trying to integrate this more personalized contextual search everywhere. That's the idea.
Yeah.
Contextual search everywhere. Now, Mary Jo, there was another little tidbit from the blog entry about how the feature naming is changing, and this actually shows that Microsoft is really all in on the 365 strategy. They are no longer saying that they're adding features to Word or adding features to PowerPoint or to Excel. It's now anytime there's an advancement, they're adding features to 365, and they really want people to think of this as it's a bundle. It's no longer an individual application. It's the service that you buy. Is that the only place we see it, or was there at Ignite, was there a huge push to put 365 above anything else?
I think they're just starting to do this.
Yeah.
It's going to be something we hear more about and see more about over time. But the idea is, instead of talking about Office 365 and Windows and enterprise and mobility and security separately in silos, they want you as a customer to think about this as Microsoft 365. And they're even talking about things like Microsoft 365 powered devices now. So you're not going to hear them say Windows powered or Windows 10 powered. You're going to hear them say Microsoft 365 powered. So that is a definite change, and I think this is the first public venue where they're rolling that branding and change out.
That was a really insightful question. You sure you don't want to talk about Apple Watch for a little while? No, the reason I say that, when you go back to the beginnings of Office 365, the big value prop there was this notion that you get all of it. But for Microsoft, it means they can update all of it together. You don't have to worry about whether your Exchange customer also has SharePoint or whatever. They do. And by making something called Office 365, it opens up this broader suite of solutions to the same kind of updating, although they never did discuss that. But you could see that maybe happening in the future.
One of the other announcements that excited me was this idea of new PCs at a low price point that are going to be supporting Windows S, because we've been all about 365 everywhere. Just last week or the week before, we were talking about Chromebooks and how Chromebooks are making a huge push into the enterprise. Microsoft has pushed back with some what looks to be decent hardware with decent specs running 10S.
I think that's the big thing.
Yeah, is this a direct response to that? I mean, I personally thought that Microsoft was past this, that they were going to just say, look, we only care about the services.
Right.
This is back into the hardware.
You've said something incredibly insightful. I wonder what Google will announce next so Microsoft can copy it with Windows 10S.
Probably an Apple Watch.
Yeah, I actually never thought of it in that light, but that makes some sense. Although I don't have any sense that Google is targeting these specific types of workers like Microsoft is with the first line, right? Yeah, first line employees. But the big thing that stuck out about this to me was the fact that these things are not stripper PCs. They're actually decent looking PCs. And even though they have starting prices that are pretty low, you can actually go up with the specs and the prices will go up accordingly. And I think this sits nicely between those cheap educational devices and say a Surface laptop, which arguably starts at $12.99 for a decent version. So I think these PCs will kind of sit right in the middle price-wise.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at this. You've got the HP Stream 14 Pro. It's a 14-incher, ultra slim, starting at $275, all the way up to the Lenovo V330, which is for $340.
All 14 inches, yeah.
Yeah, and they're all 14-inch notebooks. They're all,
which is great.
The Acer line, it's not much different from the Acer Ultrabook that I'm using right now. They've kind of taken this look and feel. So you're right. They feel like high-quality Ultrabooks, but that price point is below Chromebook price.
They're probably more like laptops. But the thing to remember here is that when you think about first-line workers, employees, these are people who are basically using a kiosk or a kiosk plus, like maybe not just one app or maybe a handful of apps. And so this is a logical next step for Windows 10S because it doesn't have that broad application support. And so you could have these guys working in kind of a lockdown environment that may make sense for Windows 10S.
But they did add one new, fun, confusing point to this whole thing. They're starting to talk about something called Windows 10 Enterprise in S mode. And so the idea is sometime next year, if you buy one of these low-end PCs and you have a subscription to Windows 10 Enterprise, you'll be able to continue to run Windows 10S, only running store apps, no Win32 apps, but you'll be able to get some of the Windows 10 Enterprise features like Credential Guard, Application Guard, if you have that subscription and you want to turn that on.
Yeah. And I don't remember who I heard this from, maybe Rich or somebody, but during a session they kind of explained the naming. Actually, maybe it was a meeting that you had.
Yeah, it was me.
Where they actually think of Windows 10S internally as Windows 10 Pro in S mode. This new SKU, if you will, is Windows 10 Enterprise in S mode.
And
just when you thought you had this figured out, no.
Well, to be fair, Windows S does make much more sense for the enterprise. That's where you want things to be locked down, and you want to make sure that no one's running a rogue application.
Well, it does and it doesn't. I mean, one of the things we see with mobile devices, aside from, the BYOB or whatever, or BYO, D, sorry. Speaking of BYOB, is that actually, employees today expect more liberal rights on their own devices. And you see things on Android like the separation of personal data and work data through work profiles. it seems like Windows is sophisticated enough to handle this as well. And if you're going to bring a really locked down device into the enterprise at this point, it's a little touchy, but in those specific scenarios where it's a first line worker, kiosk type thing, it's almost like a laptop kiosk. That makes some sense.
All right. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about Skype. There was a little bit of a leak. I'm not sure if Microsoft wanted this to be out as early as it was out, but evidently we are evolving the naming convention again.
Sure.
What do we start with? We started with Skype, and then there was Links, and then Skype for Business, and now we've got Teams.
You could go back further than Skype. We could go back to Office Communications and Link.
Yeah.
Now,
so the leak was mostly correct that happened about Microsoft doing away with Skype for Business and moving instead to Teams. So they are going to do this eventually. They're going to migrate everyone at some point off of Skype for Business and onto Teams instead. But the part of the leak that was wrong was this is not all going to happen by next summer, which freaked out a lot of IT pros when they heard that. Instead, they're going to do this more gradually. They haven't given us a cutoff date for when this has to happen, but initially, they're going to say, hey, if you're running Skype for Business and you don't need a lot of these advanced cloud PBX and high-end calling capabilities, maybe you should think about using Teams. And we're going to have some add-ins for Teams that you can use for things like call holding and PSTN calling and conferencing. So that's going to happen in the near term. They're going to try to gently push people that way. And then once they do get some of these more advanced calling features added to to Teams, it'll be more of a harder shove to try to get people migrated over. But the good news, if you're someone who uses Skype for Business Server on-prem, they are going to have another version of that coming out in the second half of next year. So if you do use this product on-prem, they're not just going to say to you, okay, now you're using Teams and forget the server. So that's good.
I think the on-prem version still has functionality related to phone system integration. That isn't possible.
It does.
In the cloud. I did talk to them about this separately, and we talked about a bunch of different things. But it's interesting that the work on this actually started a few years ago, and we know that Skype did an infrastructure redo, and then they started working on the client again. But remember when the consumer clients were announced earlier this year, they never said anything about Skype for Business.
Right.
So they had been plotting this change for Teams for some time. And it's going to be interesting to see if the Teams app framework, if you will, can sustain the additions of all of these extra features related to telephony and calling and so forth.
But it's not just about telephony and calling, right? I mean, Teams it uses that as an entree. So you've got your IP solution, you've got your telephony solution, you've got, I'm assuming, all of the wonderful features for Skype for Business, including real-time translation and perhaps the ability to use it in a mixed reality set.
It's actually, it's actually even better than that, because you almost can't have a conversation about any Microsoft enterprise product without mentioning machine learning and AI, right? And so if you want to add on to all of that meeting stuff, there is you're going to have a meeting about this topic. Here's what you need to know about the people who are going to be in the meeting through LinkedIn and from other data sources. After the meeting, if you were there or not, it's been recorded and transcribed and possibly translated if it was in different languages. If you were mentioned, you'll get a notification saying, hey, at 45:02, Paul said something about this guy and you might want to check it out. Or there's an action item where you said you were going to do something. Here's a follow-up. This type of stuff is just all over the place now at Microsoft. And so this is a great example of where, AI and machine learning sound like buzzwords, but they're being added to the product in ways that actually make sense.
I was at one of the Microsoft tech centers here in the Silicon Valley yesterday for a seminar with the HoloLens. And that was one of the things that they were pitching. They're saying, look, you could build a mixed reality world inside of Unity. You could use the direct hooks inside of Windows 10. But they made the big pitch for using Azure, because with Azure, of course, you get all the data analytics, and that really helps if you're trying to grow a solution. But along with Azure comes the machine learning. And that's when they did the demonstration with Skype with real-time translation. And I think just hearing that it has machine learning is one thing. Actually seeing an application where it comes into play that completely changes what you think is possible with the solution.
It'd almost be better if they never mentioned machine learning or AI. Just tell us about the features, and we could just be blown away by that.
Right. All right. Now, from what I hear, though, Office 365 is totally done. It's over. They're moving away from it because we've got Office 2019.
Yep.
And that's when all the cool
knew
kids
the
are
cloud
going
was a fad.
Yeah.
It's coming to a close.
So wait. Office 2019? Wait, why do I need this?
Yeah.
I've got 365.
So not everyone, Padre, is as cloud savvy as you. There are some people who prefer to buy Office in what Microsoft calls a perpetual client method. So you're not subscribing to it, you're just paying and using it. A lot of people were worried there wasn't going to be another Office after 2016.
Right.
But there is. It's coming out at the end of next year, even though it's going to be called Office 2019.
It's called Office for Luddites.
And it will be accompanied by Exchange 2019 and SharePoint 2019, and I would assume Skype for Business Server 2019.
No, that's true. They confirmed that.
So if you are someone who prefers or needs to use Office this way, you will be supported. You will be able to continue to use this Office client backed up against the Microsoft backend servers. There was some concern about that too, that after Office 2016, if you weren't using Office 365 Pro Plus, you wouldn't be able to use Exchange Online and SharePoint Online. That's not the case. You can use it with this client, Microsoft said. And you know what's coming in this release? If you use Office 365 Pro Plus, you already know what's in this. It's a lot of the features that have come to people who have that client that now will be coming to this version of Office. So some of the advanced inking capabilities, PowerPoint Morph and Zoom, some of the new formulas and charts in Excel. So all the things that you've already heard and seen, but may not have if you
Sounds very exciting.
Very exciting.
I referred to it earlier as yesterday's Office tomorrow.
Yes.
Yes. Wait a minute. Alex, if you switch to my HDMI, I'm still, I just, because of you, because of this show, I upgraded to Office 2007.
Office 2003?
From Office 2003. No, this is 2007, so this is a step up for me. So I get it.
2007's nice because Outlook still has the old toolbar.
I can't open my Outlook because then it will show all my emails. But this works fine for me. And in fact, at least half of the organizations that I work with are still using 2007 or 2003.
Right.
And they haven't seen the need to bump up to 365. And honestly, though, I don't see them bumping up to 2019 either.
Office for Luddites. What can I say?
Paul, you got to embrace it. Embrace the retroness.
Hey, maybe we should take a break from the normal schedule to have Rich come on now, so he doesn't have to stand over there for an hour and a half. Is that okay if we do a jump?
Absolutely. Yeah. Actually, why don't you get set up, and while you're getting set up, I'll go ahead and run an ad.
There you go.
Folks, every once in a while, it's nice to have a new advertiser to come onto the show and really shake things up. And we've got one today on Windows Weekly. We're welcoming Text Expander to the stable of the Twit family. Now, this episode of Windows Weekly is brought to you by Text Expander by Smile Software, which is now available for Windows. Our Text Expander lets you instantly insert snippets of text from a repository of emails, boilerplate, and other content as you type, using a quick search or abbreviation. Think of it as macros, but for content. You can communicate smarter with Text Expander. You can use Text Expander to power through repetitive communications. You can fix spelling errors automatically, standardize and improve written replies you do every day, bring order to your meeting notes with a fillable template, and write a customizable reference request once, then use it every time you need it. Now, this is how it works. You can see it. I've got these snippets of content from Twit TV talking about the history of Twit and some of the shows. Now, I don't have to use the template exactly as it's presented there. I can customize it for the person I'm trying to communicate with and then just drop in the snippets when necessary. The wonderful thing about this system is that I can use the snippet developed by my entire team. We could create a snippet for every show we have on the network. We could create a snippet for when we try to explain to people what Twit TV is. We could have a snippet for when we talk about the different things that Leo has done throughout his broadcasting career. And with just a single key phrase, it automatically gets added to my document. It's not just going to be in Word or in your word processor. It works for any program within Windows. I can use it here on Facebook. I could use it in Gmail. I can use it anywhere I might need to have content used again and again and again. A text expander is great for support professionals and teams. Sharing snippets makes Text Expander a force multiplier. You're no longer retyping and re-researching every single detail, every single fact that you need whenever you're doing business. You can set up a marketing message in your email signature and have it maintained and updated by your marketing team so that everyone's on the same page and always up to date. No more embarrassing emails where you've sent someone data that's a week or two or just a couple of days out of date. Now, on average, Text Expander users save 2 to 4 hours per month, and active users save twice as much. Multiply that by the number of users you have in your network, and you know how much Text Expander can save for you. Now, Text Expander subscriptions include software for Windows, Mac, iPad, and iPhone. And you can get started with a selection of public groups, ready-made batches of snippets that are free to use, just so you can get started. So here's what we want you to do. We want you to start working more efficiently with Text Expander. Recall your best words instantly, repeatedly. Try Text Expander free for 30 days at textexpander.com/Windows. That's textexpander.com/Windows. And we thank the folks at Smile for their support of Windows Weekly. Now let's get back to the show at Ignite in Orlando, Florida. I think I'm seeing a familiar face. Mary Jo and Paul, would you like to introduce your guest?
Not really.
This is our good friend Rich Woods, who works for neowen.net.
Hey guys.
Hi. Thanks for coming on with us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, we wanted to have Rich on because he got a really great scoop here at the show about some next generation Surface stuff coming.
Right. So they talked about the Surface Pro LTE at a couple different sessions. There was a hardware deep dive yesterday, and then there was a session this morning that was specifically for that device. But they're going to be releasing it on December 1st in a couple of different configurations, both with the Core i5, 4 gigs RAM, 8 gigs RAM, but that's it. There's not going to be a Core i7 model at all. And the reason for that is because the LTE modem is located where the fan would be, and the i5 model is fanless, and the i7 has a fan. Snapdragon X16 modem, gigabit. It's a gigabit modem, but it's only going to support 450 megabits per second download. And
what about the dongle?
The dongle.
Yeah, that's actually why you're here. We want to talk about the dongle.
Well,
tell the whole story though.
Yeah. Okay. So, so there was another session about the USB-C dongle, and they were talking about how they're ready to start embracing USB Type-C. Yeah.
Right on the leading edge.
Right on the leading edge. And so they're they promised this dongle. I think was it back in May they said they were going to do it. And I think Panos kind of joked like, yeah, if you like dongles, there's USB-C. And it's meant for if you want to connect a USB-C dock to your Surface. It's still USB 3.1 Gen 1, so it's like 5 gigabits per second. And that's it for the it's coming later this year, which I think they already said.
But you didn't tell the best part.
What's that I didn't bring it?
Yeah. So the guy doing the dongle session.
How full was this room?
Forgot to bring the dongle.
So it was so important.
I couldn't actually see it.
It was so important that he just left it at home.
It'd be like if Mary Jo forgot she had a podcast today and you guys were all sitting here.
Now, let me back up a little bit. So when we're breaking down the models, there's LTE, but it's only on the i5 version?
Yeah, just the two configurations of the i5.
Why would they put it on the i7?
Well, actually, that's the interesting part of this.
Yeah.
Well, there was the fan bit, but why? The real thing is why would they talk about this here? Isn't this what they're going to announce in October? So what's the speculation on that? Because we all have theories now. Right. Microsoft is holding an event in London.
It's really just another configuration of an existing product, right?
Right.
So do you think now that Panos Panay will actually get up on a stage and say, here's this thing we already talked about.
No, he won't say that.
But okay, but I mean,
right.
Panos is
paraphrasing.
pumped. Panos is always pumped.
He's pumped,
always
yeah.
pumped.
The manufacturing process is unbelievable. No one else makes nice things.
Yeah.
But do you think there's going to be some other announcement?
Now I'm wondering.
You think book 2? Is that what you're thinking?
No, not book 2.
No, I don't know. I don't think book 2, but
No.
you have to wonder.
Yeah.
There's got to be a point.
No, what if, let's play a guessing game.
That's always fun.
Let's
What
all
if-
throw $20 on the table.
Okay.
Right.
A pure, total guess, making this up. What if it is a Microsoft ARM-based
Right.
device running
That's an
Windows 10?
interesting thing.
That would be cool, yeah.
That would be cool.
So, for example, if there was a Surface Pro with LTE that was an always connected PC running on ARM, that would be worth standing in front
That's
of.
what I kind of thought this was going to be until they announced it here.
Sure.
I was happy to see that it uses the X16 modem because, we know these ARM PCs are coming with the Snapdragon 835, and those are all going to be gigabit. And I didn't know what the Intel ones were going to be like, so I was happy to see that they're doing this.
They're going to be terrible, is what they're going to be like.
Well, at least they're not using the Intel gigabit modems that don't even really exist yet.
Well, I confused him for about 15 minutes in the press room today. I won't go through the whole thing. I kind of babbled through my explanation of what I thought was happening. But I sort of think that the X16 is the modem that will be in these devices, whether they are Intel or, well, it's probably integrated Snapdragon.
Right, it's integrated into the 835, yeah.
I thought that was my understanding.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, there's they had one of these units there, and there's no antenna lines on it at all. It's pretty cool. Right along the top edge of the device is replaced with plastic, and
there you go.
just right on the side you can see 2 little lines where the plastic meets the magnesium, but it's not like an iPad where you can see the antenna lines around the top. It's a pretty nice looking device.
Oh, rate limiting that modem, is that just a power thing?
I don't know. They tried to break that down by saying that you don't really need gigabit speeds.
Because 450
like USB.
megabits is enough.
Yeah. So they said, well, with
what?
Netflix, if you look on Netflix's site and you say, it says how much speed you need to stream 4K, and it's 25 megabits per second. So what does anyone really need a gigabit for?
Because you're downloading an insider build while you're watching.
Exactly.
Netflix.
Yeah.
Wait. So they
Well,
didn't they didn't explain it any further than that. It was just like, oh yeah, and this is better, that you only get half the speed that this could actually do.
Well, they did kind of say that if they need to, they can flip a switch and support gigabit. So yeah.
Okay, but
That just raises
Just
more
flip the
questions.
switch.
It does.
Is it a
They
heat
can-
problem or it's strange?
they didn't really go too deep into it, but they also mentioned that current network speeds are 50 megabits per second. They really went in on how we don't need gigabit, just like USB-C.
I was just thinking the same thing. Yeah. Anyone asking for that is a jerk.
Yeah.
But here's a dongle jerk. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, but I mean, if the mobile networks can't do anything more than 50 megabit per second, then it won't hurt if you enable the full speed on the modem itself. Again, the only thing I can come back to is it's power or heat. And maybe that's why you don't see it on the i7 configuration.
Doesn't wireless bandwidth seem lossy? I mean, when you get some kind of a rating on a wire, it seems like you're getting that thing. But with wireless, I don't ever feel confident that that's what it really is.
Yeah. Oh.
Like if it could just be doubled by the flipping of a switch, wouldn't you want that?
Yeah, you would, but I just they implied that they're gonna do it when when we
spring
can really
update,
take
they'll-
advantage. Yeah.
Nice.
So it's going to support 20 different LTE bands, not T-Mobile's new 600 megahertz band. They actually said that on stage.
Grumble.
They said it'll work on all. This is a good one because they said it'll work on all LTE networks, but it has to be certified. So, in other words, if it's not certified on AT&T and T-Mobile, it'll just work because AT&T and T-Mobile just let you plug in devices. If it's a carrier where you do have to be certified, it would have to be certified.
So
Well, it's
it
nice to
will
see
work
the
on
carriers
all
still doing their
LTE
own
networks
tricks.
except the networks it doesn't work on.
Yes.
Okay, good. That's good to know. Good to know.
Yeah.
Now, it was just those Surfaces. No Surface Pro Studio, no Surface Book.
Nope, they would not talk about anything anything that hasn't been released or is coming. Standard Surface stuff.
You tried. You flipped your badge,
I
right?
tried,
So
yeah.
you pretended you
Nice.
weren't the press. Good job.
Yeah.
No,
You're going to go far, Rich.
Well, then to go back to Paul's question, why bring that up here? I mean, was there a tie-in, or
Yeah.
was this just eye candy?
I really don't know why but there was a session this morning dedicated to it, so it wasn't just like I was back there asking questions. They really announced this thing here.
You know, they might want they're selling this to enterprise, right?
Yeah.
So it's obviously this type of device with LTE built in would be deployed like any mobile device.
Right.
And maybe that's the point, but it's the timing is just so odd.
Yeah, I like the idea of an ARM-based device at the October event because that just seems like something they would do for Surface, you know?
Yep, I did too.
Well, what would you need to see out of an ARM-based device? Form factor, power, battery life, connectivity. What would make an ARM device
Well,
actually
first
worth
of all, I do expect it to be an existing device whenever it's announced.
Right.
And then that's the thing you asked is the question, you know, is the battery life going to be significantly better than on Intel, and is the performance going to be not significantly less? We don't know.
Yeah, well, they did say that the LTE on the Surface Pro is not going to affect battery life, or at least much. If you use it on LTE all the time, it should still get 90% of the battery life that it already does.
There you go. That's great.
Anything else from Surface World? Any other juicy tidbits?
That's about it.
Yeah, we do have, there was another Surface bit. So we had some news about, you should share this week, from Duplex, and in there they looked at Surface device usage share. But of course the Surface laptop and the new Surface Pro are both new to this year. So every one of those devices is running Windows 10, and they represent every one of those devices. There aren't some Surface Pros out in the world, new Surface Pros running Windows 8.1 or whatever that might not be added into this list. I had said early on, as soon as I saw the laptop, in fact, that I expected this thing to be the volume seller. And I see them everywhere, like at the show, there are a lot of them. But actually, the new Surface Pro has been outselling the Surface laptop by about 3 to 1. And that's true worldwide, and it's true in the United States. And I was surprised by that.
I blame the
did not expect
keyboard.
that.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of the laptops here.
Yeah, me too.
But yeah, I mean the Surface Pro is it's a beloved form factor at this point, I think.
It's a known quantity for sure.
Yeah, sure.
None of us are using one, but beloved.
Sure. Yeah. I know a lot of people who want one.
I
That's
do
all I'm
too.
saying.
I know. I'm kidding. You know me and lappability. That's all.
By the way, one more thing I'll say is that
One more thing.
that one slide that they showed about always connected PCs, and they were showing a picture of a guy holding a Surface laptop.
Right.
You know, they wouldn't say anything about an LTE Surface laptop, but there was just that one slide, so you never know.
It was a cute little leak, I think.
Yeah.
Now, Rich,
That's
now that
awesome.
we're at the end of the Surface news, let me ask you, do you want to talk about the Apple Watch?
I was going to make a joke about that when I came up,
that's
but
good.
Paul beat me to it.
What about the new Amazon Echo?
Yeah, I haven't even looked at that yet. But
That's a
hopefully
different
cool.
show on the network. We're only
It
about
is. Right. It's a
Microsoft
different show.
here.
All about Amazon is coming up afterwards.
Yeah.
I'll talk about Cuphead, because I heard there's no Cuphead news, but we know that's coming in 2 days.
We saw you download this today.
Yes, you did.
Oh, wait, Rich, did you pre-buy?
Yeah, I pre-bought it.
See, okay, I also pre-bought because I didn't think it was evil, and then I got a bunch of people on Twitter denouncing me because I'm supporting an evil and corrupt system by pre-buying a game. That's about right, yeah?
I don't know what's evil and corrupt about it.
I don't know if you've ever used Twitter before, but
Yeah, good point.
I know that Mary Jo bought 3 copies, which is weird, but okay. I mean,
did.
yeah, it's weird because she did it digitally too.
I did.
No, wait. Was there Cuphead news at Ignite? Because there were some rumors.
No.
That there was. I'm serious. There were some rumors of an announcement.
Cuphead for
but
Business is coming in Q1.
Cuphead 365.
Yeah.
Cuphead 2019.
I was here for the Xbox news, and I don't know what I walked into.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, the gaming division didn't make an appearance at Ignite, right?
No.
Yeah, I mean, that would be kind of, not out of the realm of possibilities since the surfaces
I
were
still
there.
hear from people that want to run Excel on their Xbox One and connect a keyboard and a mouse. And
They had said they were going to do that for a
they
while.
are supposedly adding a keyboard and a mouse. I'm not sure about Excel, but yeah.
Well, remember in the beginning they had said
they
like
did.
you may not want to edit a spreadsheet, but you'll be able to.
No, they even said Dynamics 365. Why not? On your Xbox.
I think you're missing a
That's
market.
UWP.
I mean, who doesn't want that sit-back experience with your Excel spreadsheet, right? Big screen TV
Sit
on your
back with
sofa.
a cup of coffee and soak it in.
Just making macros all day.
Well, I guess the UWP Office apps aren't what they're going for anymore. They're going for the desktop bridge apps now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so I mean, what next? What about OneDrive? Because OneDrive is actually a product. We all use it. Yes, all four of us.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
They made an announcement for OneDrive, an update, OneDrive everywhere. Although I don't know what that means because
so
it's
cute that
already.
you said they made an announcement. They made like 118
I
announcements.
know. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's yours, by the way.
Yeah, I know. I need to bring up the notes because I can't keep this straight. I only listed some of them because there were a bunch of them. But the big ones to me were Restore My OneDrive, which is a really nice dashboard for file recovery and with versioning and to-the-minute versioning. And so they've had a recycle bin capability in OneDrive in the web for a while, but this is a much nicer UI for that. They mentioned that the Files on Demand, which we know is coming to the Windows 10 client, and the Fall Creators Update will be there in final form on October 17th. They're finally updating the UI for OneDrive on the web, which has looked the same for quite a long while. A bunch of share stuff, including secure sharing without a Microsoft account. I guess I don't think that's mobile only, but secure sharing without a Microsoft account. And the updated mobile clients on Android and iOS. And also the OneDrive client will now be included with Office on the Mac. I assume through Office 365. I don't know if it's do they still do? They must still do perpetual Office, as they call it.
Mm-hmm. Office 2019.
2019 for Mac,
Yeah. But OneDrive is already everywhere. This is just the addition of features.
Yeah.
I mean, I do like the features. They look nice, especially the fine control of sharing and who gets what permission. But I mean, there's no extra platform that they added. It was already available on iOS and Android and Windows.
That's right.
Okay. Now, tell me a little bit about the Microsoft Graph, because I was trying to read Mary Jo's article and I got a little cross-eyed.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, wait till we get to quantum computing.
So Microsoft Graph is this centralized, unified API that Microsoft has, and more of their products and third-party products as well are starting to be able to access this API, tie into it. So the way I think about Microsoft Graph is if you get your app to work with the graph, you're going to make your app stickier because you'll be able to automatically surface things like people and documents and a lot of relevant information in a more seamless way. And there were a number of sessions here that touched on the Microsoft Graph. It was part of the keynote on day one. And all I can say is I think you're going to hear more and more about this as time goes on because almost every Microsoft product, including Windows, is going to tie into the graph.
Yep.
I called it when we were doing Channel 9 Live this week, the secret sauce. And I kind of feel like
it's like the glue.
It's the glue.
I don't remember what feature it was, but I thought it was graph-based where I assume this means my people, but they were talking about bringing this experience to the Windows
it wasn't my
taskbar.
people. I asked them that too.
Yeah, it seems like it would be.
Yeah. So when they talked about Bing for Business, they talked about the contextual search in SharePoint and My Analytics. This also is because of the Microsoft Graph. It's like Bing tying into the graph and helping you get more relevant and personal results. Did that help, Padre?
A little bit. I mean, I get the machine learning and I get the analytics part. I'm not really sure is the machine learning just gives me better actionable data off my statistics.
It's basically data points.
Yeah.
So
data endpoints.
Yeah, we talked earlier about some of the AI machine learning stuff that's going on in, say, Bing for Business, where you ask it a question and you don't know what data points it's hitting. But the thing that enables that is basically it's the Microsoft Graph. In other words, you don't have to worry about querying a specific data source. You just query it a new dashboard or front end, whatever it might be. In this case, it's a web browser, and it's using the graph on the back end to bring those things together.
Okay.
Mary Jo's writing a post, by the way.
No, I'm fixing it.
As we speak.
I'm multitasking.
Well, speaking of multitasking, can you tell me a little bit about SQL Server 2017? Because
No, I cannot.
oh, come on, Paul. I know you're big on the enterprise. You want to tell me all about Windows,
I'm not
Linux,
doing
and
it.
Docker.
I'm not doing it.
And this is going to be
Yes.
available next
It's
week.
available for it's available for Paul's favorite operating system.
Yes.
DOS. Oh, Linux.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, SQL Server 2017 available on Windows Server, Linux, Docker. They said it was commercially available here at the show, but really it's going to be available next week. Close enough. So Microsoft's been testing this for a couple of years. It's something that people I talk to are pretty interested in if they're big Oracle shops, because they really haven't had a good alternative database offering on Linux to Oracle. So a lot of people I'm talking to are like, ooh, this will be a nice card I can play to try to lower my costs when I'm negotiating with Oracle. And if they won't do it,
Jeez.
maybe I'll just go to SQL Server anyway because I already have it running on Windows. It would be nice to have the same database all the way across. And if you're wondering, is it the same database? It is, which is kind of amazing. When I first heard about it, I was like, oh yeah, so this is SQL Server for Linux, but it's not really the same SQL Server
Yeah, it's going to
as
be
Windows.
specific workloads. It will only do certain things.
No, it's the same, which is crazy. So yeah, that was a big announcement here that didn't really get a lot of play in day one introductory keynote, but this is going to be a big product for Microsoft and customers and partners.
Yeah, I actually agree with you, Mary Jo, because the 2017 SQL Server is much, much better at cloud. It is, you could tell it was cloud focused, it was cloud designed. It's designed to take large databases and break them up into shards, which is perfect for the Azure infrastructure. And that gives it a huge advantage over Oracle SQL because I can scale this essentially infinitely. I could get as big as I want. I don't have to increase the size of my hardware. I just have to increase the amount of resources that I dynamically allocate to it. That's huge, again, from the enterprise side. But my question is, are they going to tie that into the direct Azure offering? Because it sounds like that's where it belongs. It should be there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they'll tie it into it, but the whole idea at Microsoft these days is hybrid computing. And what they say about hybrid computing that's different from some of their competitors is you can actually have something that looks almost identical, if not actually is identical, that you're running on premises and in the cloud. That's their whole pitch, so that you can write an app once and actually deploy it, say, on Azure Stack or Windows Server, and that you'll have a more seamless computing experience as part of that. So that's the, kind of all up pitch for that.
Right. Now, as long as we're talking about servers, can we? If you jump to my screen really quickly, Alex, this is from the Microsoft Technology Center. They've got this wonderful display, this little data center, that they explain that all the hardware has been made redundant because they've moved everything into the cloud, and that's what they're really doing. And also at Ignite, they had the announcement about Azure Stack now being able to ship from your local server vendor. What's the placement of this announcement? Why are they doing it now? What exactly can I expect as someone setting up my own infrastructure?
Right. So as of this week, you actually can start taking shipment of Azure Stack from Microsoft's partners, Dell, EMC, HP, and Lenovo.
How much does an Azure Stack appliance
A
cost?
lot of money.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
If you have to ask.
HP's ProLiant for Azure Stack, for examples, $300,000 to $400,000 to
Yikes.
start. And the reason it costs so much is, these are big multi-rack servers. They come pre-loaded with Azure Stack as the operating system. The OEM actually is the one who has to keep it up, doing maintenance, helping you keep it all up to date. So it's not just like here's a cloud in a box. Good luck. It's not that.
Right.
Yeah, so it's definitely an enterprise product. I'm curious to see how this takes off, if people really want this, because Microsoft's pitching it as this is the way, if you're not ready or able to put certain workloads in the cloud, you could put it in something that looks and works a lot like Azure, but it's in your data center. So that's an interesting pitch. Is it interesting enough to pay $300,000? I don't know.
It sounds like data center in the beginning. Remember,
yeah, it does.
You needed the white.
I'm going to buy two.
Are you?
Scientists
Nice.
to come in. Do
Forrester,
they have financing?
Forrester came out with a report just last week where they started talking about the adoption of pure cloud applications and pure cloud infrastructure and how it's been way, way above what they thought it would be at this point. It seems as if the traditionalists who wanted everything on premise have kind of gone by the way. They understand all the advantages and efficiencies that you get in deploying into the cloud, but even hybrid deployment has not risen as much as pure cloud deployment. So I'm wondering if the ability to buy Azure Stack is this sort of, okay, this will get you into hybrid deployment, because if you're going to have an Azure Stack on premise, of course, you're going to want to have the hybrid deployment into the cloud. And eventually, we're just going to move you to pure cloud. Is that the path that they want people to take?
Sure. I mean, that's the ideal, but I think Microsoft realizes not everyone can put every workload in the cloud. There's compliance reasons that some companies cannot do that. It's not just fear of the cloud. I mean, there are real reasons not everything can go in the cloud. So I like that they're being realistic, and I think they have been realistic about this since the beginning of their entry into the cloud. I remember Amazon at first was like, hybrid, no one wants hybrid. Now, of course, Amazon is doing hybrid too, but I think this was a differentiator for Microsoft, and it's nice to see that they are continuing along this path, because this is what a lot of customers need to do. It's not just, oh, I'm scared to go to the cloud, and now I'm going to use this as my security blanket. It's not that. It's more, oh, well, I can't put everything in the cloud, but it's nice that I have an alternative where I still have the consistency, even if I can't go straight public cloud Azure.
Right. Now, we are going to have to move past all the enterprise stuff, because I can see Paul is starting to wish he was still drinking.
So actually, I think I'm getting a suntan from this light.
This is good. You want to take back a memento from Orlando. That's going to be it.
Yeah.
So maybe one last bit, because this has everyone confused, and that's quantum computing. We've heard about it a lot, and some of us have actually even done the research to figure out what they might be talking about. But Microsoft has jumped into the quantum computing fray, and I understand that they tried again to explain exactly what that means at Ignite.
Yeah, and it's like explaining the unexplainable. I met with these guys afterwards and was hoping for some clarity, and I'm not going to read again from the book of Paul's notes, but basically it was a bunch of sciencey words that don't make any sense in that order. But I tweeted this, but I literally wrote an article where the title was Microsoft's Quantum Computing Explained, and then the start of the article was going to say, is the article I would like to write, but here's some Kitten GIFs instead, because I have no idea what they're talking about. So, but the thing is, I mean, I met with these folks, so I don't want to make fun of it. It's incredible what they're doing. But in the article and when I talked to them in person, I basically just had to apologize a bunch of times because I'm having a really hard time with it. But I will say, Bill Gates and Satya Nadella both admitted they have no idea what this is. So I feel
You're
a little
good
better.
company. Yeah.
I think the long story short is that this thing is massively parallel computing that requires some kind of next-gen technology that very few people understand. And Microsoft, I think, is on the cusp of a breakthrough here. And I think that was the reason for coming out now, because they've been working on this stuff for a decade and a half or whatever, and other people have too, right? IBM's working on it, Google is working on it. And I think one of the nice things about quantum computing is because of the nature of this, I don't want to call it a business, but this type of thing, is that the people working on this are scientists and researchers, and they would tend to work together, regardless of what company that they work at. And so this isn't a competitive advantage thing necessarily, but Microsoft is going down a different path with their approach to qubits and how they can stabilize things to scale to what you need to be able to solve really complex problems very quickly. And it is different from the approach that, say, IBM is taking. And I think that's what they wanted to discuss this week.
And there's going to be a programming language.
That's right.
That was the only part I understood.
All of our programming languages are binary. They're based on binary.
It's a C-like language. It looks like C# a bit.
Which may be called Q#.
Yeah, and I mentioned it to those guys. I said, I like this Q# thing. And I said, what's Q#? And I said, Q#'s your programming language. And I said, we didn't name it Q#. And I said, well, you should. It's perfect. And I think they may.
trademark Q Sharp.
And then they trademarked it. Literally, during my meeting, they trademarked the term Q Sharp. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious why they picked this show and this time to do this.
Yeah.
And why they did it and the way they did it on the stage. I was kind of puzzled by that. But, I think a lot of people at Microsoft and Microsoft customers and partners have given the company kind of a bad rap recently for being behind and always trying to catch up. And I think they wanted to show their own employees and everyone else like, hey, we're not just the SharePoint company, even though, hey, SharePoint, but, we're doing other bigger things, and we have like a lot of future ideas that aren't just ideas, but they're actually things we're working on that are going to come to market, and we're going to be there when they come to market. So I feel like it was almost like an aspirational and inspirational thing that they did here at the show.
I don't know. They said to me that they've moved past research and they're actually in engineering now.
Yeah.
And so I maybe a couple of years, but I don't think it's 10 years.
10.
I got to believe.
Okay.
Well, Paul, I think you had the perfect quote in your article. You quoted Microsoft researcher Christus Vore, who said that parallel processing provides exponentially more compute capacity than a typical von Neumann machine. At which point,
I had to look up.
A large part of the internet looked up von Neumann machine.
And by the way, it's a computer. That's all that means.
Yeah, exactly.
The funny thing about the quantum computing guys is that they have several words and phrases to describe what you and I would call a computer, and all of them are meant to demean that thing because it is pathetic compared to what they're working on.
So at Ignite 2018, they're going to say it has exponentially more powerful than that pithy little thing you've got on your desktop.
Yeah, it's like 64 von Neumanns.
Wow.
Okay, let's get past the enterprise. Unless Mary Jo, if you've got another enterprise tidbit you want to throw in there, I think we should move past so that Paul can get excited again.
Yeah, he needs to wake up.
Yeah. All right, Paul.
Also, Rich, you don't feel
Rich
obligated
I
to
know,
say
you
that.
don't have to stay up here.
The poor guy's
okay.
I really need to
just,
go to the
left
bathroom.
you
When's
here.
this going to conclude?
All right, well, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks.
No. Rich, wait. Because once you've sat down at a Twit podcast, you're not allowed to leave. So.
Is that true?
Right.
All right.
Yeah, you have to stay here till the lights go
But
off.
seriously, though, I'm leaving.
Yep.
Thanks. Got it.
All right. Now, there was some non-enterprise based news at Ignite because Satya Nadella's new book has dropped, and it's getting some interesting analysis. Who wants to take it first? Oh, yeah, Mary Jo. There we go.
Mary Jo read the book, so I
Hit
think we
refresh.
Hit
what she has to
refresh.
say.
Here it is. So I got an advanced copy of this a week ago to read. And, of course, immediately the first thing you do is flip to the index, and I'm in the book.
See, I flipped to the index and I looked up
yes.
Windows Phone.
Yeah, well, I'm self-centered. You're not.
Wait,
Okay.
was this from the exclusive interview that you had with Satya Nadella? Is that?
No. So I mentioned like literally in one sentence in the book, and it's not a bad mention.
It's better than 0 sentences, by the way.
In it, Nadella's talking about how they came to think about cloud computing and get into the market. And I happened to write this article a number of years ago about Microsoft doing this thing codenamed Red Dog, which ended up being Azure. And so he said, yeah, journalist Mary Jo Foley, she wrote about this thing called Red Dog. I'm like, hey, I'm in the book. That was it. That was my whole mention. My 1 second of fame.
It works.
But overall about the book. So this is a very interesting book. The premise of the book is Nadella tells us how he has tried to reinvigorate and re-energize the company since he became the CEO. And the book starts out talking a bit about his childhood, his children. He kind of shows all his sources of inspiration and how he came to think about leading Microsoft. So I was kind of excited as I started out the book, and I was like, oh, this is going to be good, like really good insight into, what Microsoft's doing, their strategy and such. Well, I like the beginning of the book. And then in the middle, I feel like a lot of Microsoft's decisions were explained away as being about growth mindset. Like everything they did that was a hard decision, like making Windows free for a year when Windows 10 first came out, instead of saying it was because Android was kicking our butt, they said, it's because of our growth mindset. And there are a lot of examples like that, so I felt a little bit let down about that. I really wanted some more insights about, why they made some of these choices and kind of how that change the strategy of the
I
company.
think they wanted to theme it, in other words.
I think so.
Like there's some cohesive strategy that's always in place.
Right.
It'd be nice to get past the
end,
marketing speak.
It would be.
Yeah.
And the book has 2 other co-authors with him. One of them is his former chief of staff, whose name is Jill Tracy Nichols, and another person from Microsoft, Greg Shaw. So, it's kind of a book that was written by committee, I'm sure, to some extent. And I liked it, but I wanted to love it, and I didn't love it, to be very honest.
And that's just because you were hoping for a few extra frank moments.
I was. I wanted
that.
a few more moments. But some of the things he was honest about really caught me off guard, like the one you found when you were looking through.
Yeah, I wasn't joking when I said I looked up Windows Phone first. It literally was the first thing I looked up. And he confirmed rumors that had been around a few years ago that when he was, before he was CEO, he was on the senior leadership team for then CEO Steve Ballmer. And Steve Ballmer was in the middle of acquiring Nokia. And a lot of shareholders and a lot of the board members and a lot of the senior leadership team were against that acquisition. So he finally asked his team, well, give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. He doesn't say what other people voted, but he voted no. And then, of course, he became the CEO about 5 months later. And there was a kind of suspicion, I think, in the fan base that he wasn't a big proponent of Windows Phone. And they did what they did for a couple of years, or for a year, maybe. And saw little success. And then, of course, he dismantled the phone business. He laid off, is it 18,000 people?
No, more, like 30,000?
Some huge number of employees. And, of course, that's kind of a tough thing. Yeah. And he says, looking back on this, that his biggest regret is the layoffs, which makes sense.
Yeah. And there's a little bit at the end of the book about the 3 technologies he's betting the company on. Of course, one is quantum computing,
right?
Mixed reality.
That might explain the quantum computing.
I know, that
right
might.
There.
Mixed reality, quantum computing, and AI.
So of those 3, I think quantum computing is the one that would be the least familiar to most.
True. Yeah.
And it's possible that this is just about that, because here comes the book. So let's remind everybody what we're doing.
Yeah, I think it's worth a read. If you have to deal with Microsoft, or you're a Microsoft fan, or even a foe, I would say it's worth a read, just because we cover this so closely that a lot of this was very familiar to us, and we had heard a lot of these stories that are in the book. But if you're not following Microsoft every second of every day like us, you may find some things in here you haven't heard.
And it helps to understand the mindset.
It does.
Because the company
mindset.
the company just approaches things a certain way these days, and it's still maybe a little weird to some of us who've been around for a long time.
Yeah. You did mention mixed reality. If you go to my computer, Alex, this was yesterday, and I got to try on the HoloLens.
Nice.
Those are nice old lady glasses you got there.
Yeah, it did not feel like the prototype I wore. This looks considerably more geeky, which I'm okay with. But my question is, I know that you've tried, Paul, you've tried the HoloLens before.
Yeah.
Have you tried any of the lower priced mixed reality headsets?
Yeah, I still haven't. And so I will do that soon. I have not.
Yeah, because I think October 17th is when the lowest price ones drop from Acer. You're going to be able to get them for $300.
So these, remember though, these aren't the same thing.
Right, absolutely not.
These are VR headsets. So I've certainly experienced VR. I suspect it's similar to what we've seen so far, HTC Vive, whatever.
Oh, well, actually, the mixed reality, it's
I'm sorry, with the addition of...
Right. It's closer to the HoloLens, but there's no compute power in the visor, so you do need a computer, a Windows 10 computer.
You do need a big computer.
Yeah.
I have a big computer.
Yeah, it's...
Woohoo.
Yes, it has USB-C ports.
But which types of USB-C? Because that makes a difference.
It does.
I have all the types.
All right, now let's go to some news that didn't come from Ignite, because we can go back to the conference in a bit. But the Falls Creator Update is out this week, and it actually has some people quite excited, me included. I definitely want to get this running. I'm very interested to try out the mixed reality and 3D hooks, because that sounds fantastic for makers. What's your take?
Well, it's still not quite out.
Yeah,
yet.
I think it's days away.
Yeah, almost there.
Right. Yeah. So another insider build last night. Donna, actually, at our meetup last night, Donna Zakar came to our meetup, right after having pushed the red button on a new build. Yeah, so new fast ring and slow ring, right? Mm-hmm. Anything new though? Like mostly fixes, right?
Just
which
fixes.
Is right.
Yeah.
That's what they should be at.
They also pushed the build from 5 days ago to the slow ring, which is kind of interesting. So it was very quick.
Yeah.
I think it's all
almost
kind of coming together.
Almost soup. Yeah. But you are probably going to have to wait till October 17th. Most people will. Maybe not insiders, but most others won't be able to get it before then.
Well, I mean, the features I want to play with the most, which is the mixed reality and the integration with the 3D software that they got built in the Windows 10. That's what I want to play with, and I won't get those headsets until October 17th anyway, so it doesn't really bother me.
Sure.
But as far as all the rumors that we've talked about on Windows Weekly in the past, those are all true, right? Everything we thought that was going to be in the Fall Creator Update is actually going to be in the Fall Creators Update. Yes? Or?
I am trying to remember what the rumors were that we talked about, but if we said it, it's probably true. Well, remember that back in, I guess it was May, when Microsoft held Build, they announced a bunch of stuff and implied and said outright that it was coming in the Fall Creators Update. So there are certain features that are not. Right. One of those features is actually going to be, I guess the Story Remix feature is going to be delivered through the app on October 17th. And so there's a select group of people who are testing that. It's not broadly being tested yet. And then there are going to be features that will come in the next release that they did talk about, some of that timeline, or is timeline even the right word? I can't remember the name.
Timeline, no. Pick up where you left off some.
Yeah, some of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lots of enterprise security stuff.
Yep.
That's all making it in as far as we know.
Yep.
But of course you have to have the Pro version to get those.
Yeah.
Sure.
Enterprise.
Yeah, that makes sense.
A lot of it, yeah.
Speaking of Pro, what's the thing with progressive web apps? Because I kind of grok it, but I want an expert to tell me exactly how these are going to work.
Well, you'll have to do with me. So I feel like I've become like the Pied Piper for progressive web apps. I mean, one of the things I've always been looking at with Windows, dating back to, say, Windows 8, when they first introduced the store and the notion of this mobile apps platform that's kind of evolved over the years, is what that store looks like, what the quality of the apps is. Will those apps replace the traditional desktop apps that we've been using so far? And I don't think it's gone very well. And so they've evolved the strategy a bunch of times, including the bridge technologies from a few years back. And it's interesting to watch what is successful in the store and what isn't. There's some Xbox Play Anywhere games that work across platform that I think have been pretty successful, actually. Centennial apps like Spotify and Adobe Photoshop Elements 15 is really interesting, but that's not a pure UWP app, obviously. It's a desktop app that's been wrapped in an AppX wrapper and maybe given a couple of additional UWP features. So progressive web apps are cross-platform. They work everywhere. They provide they provide a native app experience on all the platforms that support them, and it should be iOS, Android, Mac, and Windows. They can integrate with that native platform. They can integrate with native features on the platform like notifications, or in Windows case, live tile support, et cetera, et cetera. They work offline. It's sort of like Netscape was right about 20 years ago. They were just 20 years ahead of their time. Microsoft, some time ago, said that they were going to integrate progressive web apps into the Windows platform. And originally we were thinking it would come in the Fall Creators Update. Now we know it's going to come in the Spring Update. But the way that works is that these apps will be available through the store. And so obviously they're running on the Edge web rendering platform, but there'll be apps that you get through the store. So it'll have an app container and an actual visual window frame. So you're not running it in the browser. It will sit on the taskbar, have its own icon, have its own notifications, have its own unique features. You could take that same app, you could do this today actually, and you could run it on Android. And on Android, the developer could choose to support native Android features as well. And so Google has been very aggressive making that happen. Microsoft is also making it happen. They just haven't done it quite as quickly, but I guess it's now coming in the next version. So if you're a developer, you can enable a developer flag in Edge in the Fall Creators Update so that you can test these things in the browser. Microsoft is testing this with a select number of apps through the store so they can see how the deployment stuff works. And to users, these things will just be apps. No one cares if you created an app in the C language or C++ or C# or whatever frameworks you might have used, and that will be the case here. And so if you look at the store, say 6 to 9 months from now, you're going to see pure UWP apps maybe made with C#. You're going to see some Centennial apps like Adobe Photoshop. You're going to see Xbox Play Anywhere games, and you're going to see progressive web apps. But to you, these things are just apps.
Now, that should very much boost the Windows Store. Are all of those apps going to be usable on Windows S?
Yes.
Yeah, because they're store apps.
Yep.
We also didn't mention this, but the Windows 10 Store is going to be renamed to Microsoft Store, it looks like. Which means they're probably opening the store to more than just apps and games and TV shows. Maybe hardware is going to be there too.
I always wondered these things.
Me too.
Why can't you go to the store in Windows and order Office 365, check it out, and have it come to you?
Yep.
It's about time. All right, well, we've had some good news. I've actually really enjoyed hearing about the feature. So let's do some bad news, or maybe bad news. I don't know exactly how bad this is. Apple has decided to dump Bing. And this affects me because I do use Bing, but they are going back to Google for their search results. First of all, your take on this, was this a surprise? Is just another strategic move, just like when Apple dumped Google in the first place? What's going on?
Well, this news came out yesterday during the show, and the way this came out was kind of odd. Apple gave a statement to TechCrunch, and they said they were doing this. They didn't actually, as far as I know, make a formal announcement that they were doing this.
Yeah.
So Microsoft had a number of deals dating back to 2013 and 2014 with Apple, where Bing was actually the backup web search provider for things like Siri, search in iOS, and Spotlight on the Mac. So yesterday, Apple said, you know what, we're just going to switch to Google for everything.
Interesting.
Yeah. And they didn't say why. And TechCrunch has a couple bits of speculation. They said, maybe it was part of their terms of their deal with Google for search, or maybe they decided they wanted consistency across the results. So they said some should not be in Bing and others in Google. They should all be one. But no one's really talking about what happened. And how much of an impact is this going to have? I don't really know, because Bing was the backup search in this case. So it wasn't like Bing was the main search on these things.
I still think it's going to be pretty significant.
You do?
Bing will still be used to provide image search, by the way.
Right.
So they still do have some kind of strange mix in there.
Yeah.
Basically, you'd ask Siri a question. If she could answer, you'd get the answer. If she couldn't, you get web results, and those web results were coming from Bing. And so now those web results will come from Google, which I think is what most people would expect. I would also imagine, given the usage on iOS devices, that this is probably going to be pretty significant. But we don't know.
We don't.
Right. That's not the only Apple news. I actually had an iPhone 8 and an iPhone 10 that I was playing with over the weekend. And one of the things that I noticed was I could not access my corporate email, which, of course, was set up through Exchange and Office 365. And I thought it was me. I thought, well, I must be fat-fingering some configuration. But I just found out that, no, that was actually a bug in iOS 11 that stopped them from sending mail on Exchange servers. Did they give any details about this? What exactly was the bug, and is it fixed now?
Oh, so you've never dealt with Apple before? No, they didn't provide any details. They issued an update, and they said this fixes it, and that was the end of the story. So.
Oh, geez.
And Skype also was broken too, wasn't
it? That's right.
Yeah.
On iOS 11. Yeah. That's fixed as well.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is that wasn't a little bug. That was millions of users updating to iOS 11 and then realizing, oh, I can receive mails, but I can't send them.
I assume this means through the built-in mail app, right? In other words, if you installed Outlook,
it would work,
or even the Gmail app, and configure your Exchange account there, it probably would have worked fine.
Right, but I know I actually have family members who refuse to install anything by Microsoft because, well, they're just not enlightened, Paul.
Sure. I'd like to visit them over the holidays. We can have a little chat.
Well, if you are going to visit them over the holidays, then I suggest you bring yourself an Xbox One X. Paul, this is the part of the show that we get to enjoy ourselves. Mary Jo's had all her enterprise goodness. This sounds surprisingly like I get to try before I buy. What is this all about?
So knowing that people will need to try it before they buy it, Microsoft is now allowing potential customers to actually get their hands on an Xbox One X and play with the new Forza game. And you can do this in Best Buy today if you live in the United States. You can do it in the Microsoft Store, I think today.
Yep.
And then soon I believe it's coming to GameStop as well. So I assume they're going to do this around the world as well. This will be a global launch, obviously. But it's kind of nice. We're a couple of months out or a month and a half out. And this may be the thing that will put it off over the top for people to see an Xbox One X on an unbelievable 4K HDR set looking as good as it can look. And you can kind of get an idea for the visuals and the performance.
Right. And speaking of visuals, I know we don't have a back of the book, but I did want to share one thing with you. I kind of have a new addiction. I only got this because I was kind of twitching, waiting for Cuphead. Alex, if you go to my computer, this is a game I picked up.
Oh, look at that.
And it's called Splasher, and it plays like Super Meat Boy. And so the whole idea is it's a physics platformer. And this thing is addicting. You get 3 different types of liquid that you can shoot. There's water. There's a bouncing fluid. There's a stick fluid. And I gotta say, super simple premise, but just like Super Meat Boy, the super simple premise ends up with hours and hours of replaying the same levels because you just get so OCD about clearing everything.
I think 2D platformers are making a comeback.
Oh yes, absolutely. Now you were into Super Meat Boy, right? I think I remember you.
Yeah. Yep.
So this is sort of the spiritual.
It looks a lot
successor.
like it. Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. And
it might be the same developer. We need to look this up.
We do. But of course, Mary Jo, you're excited by it too, as well. I can see.
She's
Super
typing another
Meat
article
Girls.
over here. She's not paying attention.
Yeah.
I think we have a show title.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, now, because we are at a live event, we have to take advantage of the wonderful thing that we can do at a live event, which is you can actually have audience reach out to you. Do you want to run some Q&A?
Well, yes.
We do.
How are we going to do this?
As an incentive, well, we could either have people, we want to have them use this mic?
Yeah.
Okay. As an incentive, because we want you can ask us anything. It doesn't have to be about the show or whatever. Whoever asks first gets my copy of this.
Oh, jeez. Don't rush the stage.
Which we have already established that Mary Jo doesn't actually like. So
I liked it, okay, but
this book is terrible. Who wants it?
No, but you're going to have to. I made some notes in here, so.
It's been defaced.
It's been defaced.
This is the worst gift.
Okay. Oh, and we've got the microphone set up too.
Okay.
Yes. Come on up. You can say who you are and where you work if you want.
Yep. Hi, my name is Vineet. I work in Cushman and Wakefield. I'm from India, Mumbai. Nice. My question to you is, Microsoft is looking at quantum computing and is trying to solve that problem. How come they cannot solve the Windows Phone problem?
Oh, that's not a big question at all.
All right. Facetiously.
You get the book for that.
I will say that quantum computing is easier than solving the Windows.
Oh boy.
Actually, okay,
where to begin?
That was funny, but it's a good question because I think you need to look at this in light of what's important to Microsoft's future, right? With Windows Phone, when it had 3% market share or whatever, you could make this case that, look, this is not going anywhere fast. But I think the thing you would have a lot more pushback to would be the notion, well, what about Windows on PCs? Those things are going away too. And then people say, what are you talking about? There are 1 billion or 1.5 billion of these. There's, this whole show seems to be dedicated to this market. What do you mean? But the truth is that market is declining and is slowly going away. And I think this is Microsoft staking a claim to the future of the company, which is a lot around these cloud services, back-end services. And so, AI and machine learning and quantum computing, I think this is a kind of core to the future of Microsoft. And I think that might be why.
Yeah.
So, devices, maybe not so core,
That was a very diplomatic answer from you.
I thought that was a great question.
It was, but you always are kind of a downer about Windows phones.
Wow. I'm sorry I only wrote 2 books about Windows Phone. I'll try to support it better next time.
No, but you, in the excerpt you found from Nadella about Windows Phone in the book, Paul put this in his article, actually. He said, Nadella, explaining why he wasn't in favor of it, said Microsoft should play where it has a play of differentiation.
Right.
So, when Windows Phone came out, there were some things about it that were better, even I would say, and different from iOS and Android, but not enough. And he kind of leaves a tiny door open. I won't say the word Surface Phone, but he leaves a little...
You literally just said the word
I did,
Surface
sorry. He leaves the door open for you thinking, so if he thought that way, he didn't just dismiss the idea of Microsoft being in mobile. He kind of said, if we have a differentiated play...
I'll take it even further. I mean, he didn't even frame it as mobile. He framed it as phone.
He did?
Yeah.
Okay.
You never know. But seriously, give up hope. It's over.
Yeah. So he's asking about, since Microsoft is all about enterprise computing, and wouldn't that give them an angle of difference?
So if you go to the back of the book and you look at Windows Phone, you will see the quote that we were just describing, and he actually does go down that path. And so he does say today we do support it in the enterprise and for specific things. He mentions Continuum, and that's how they see the differentiation today. He also mentions, for some reason, Office being cross-platform on mobile is somehow part of that. But he leaves the door open to some future phone where if we could, in fact, differentiate, not chase the taillights of Android and iOS, that they might consider it. And so it's not completely written off. But seriously, it's literally completely written off. So do you have like a used piece of gum you can offer to the next person? Or
what else do we have? I don't know. No other prizes, but who else wants to ask something? Yeah. Come on up.
Hi, Etienne from South Africa. So Microsoft has done a really good job of explaining all these really cool services they're offering and all the new features coming into Azure. The problem we have is that availability of that service. So we got in the continent of Africa, which is that big thing in the middle of the map.
I've seen it on a map.
We're only getting to Microsoft data centers in the latter half of 2018. That's only in South Africa. So we trade in the whole continent, which means that AWS and a lot of the other cloud providers got a much bigger footprint. I was hoping there'd be some announcements about getting these really cool services deployed in a bigger way.
Yeah, but there weren't.
So the question is, do you guys know anything that I didn't hear?
I don't know about any new Azure regions opening up in Africa, but the one glimmer of hope I will give you is in Nadella's book. He talks a lot about how Microsoft needs to expand its worldview, and he talks about even, I think, launching Windows 10 in Kenya, right?
That's right. Was it Kenya? Yeah, Kenya.
I think it was Kenya. So he really thinks more globally, I think, than some of the leaders of Microsoft in the past. Right. So I think you have some hope that
it does take some time. This is you're talking about a very big problem, but we hear about this. I can't get Cortana in the country I live in. I can't get some feature of some program. Not having local data centers is a huge problem, or huger problem.
But nothing insider to tell you about. Sorry.
Thanks for nothing, then.
All right, you're welcome.
Wow, tough crowd.
Yeah, tough crowd.
That's good.
Hi, my name's Marty Ferguson, and I was wondering, since you mentioned the Enterprise S edition, maybe with the focus that they put on some of the UWP bridge, would that mean possibly that there would be some kind of 32-bit apps, possibly in Enterprise, if they're going to have an S edition as well?
No, sorry.
It's still just going to lock it down?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that, but I've always sort of felt that there's this compromise coming that has to happen, because the Windows 10S is capable of running these things. And if you think about managed environments like an enterprise, maybe that's a decision they could make. That you could whitelist, here's the 2 Win32 apps we need. You can run those.
That's what I was thinking. Maybe it was a whitelist.
That makes tons of sense to me. They have literally never said that, but yes, they have to do this. They have to.
When I asked them about 10S for Enterprise, I asked, would it exclusively lock you down to Windows Store, and was there any other kind of alternate path? And they said no.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're just being downers up here.
Yeah.
Chris Copeland, let's bring this back to Windows Phone for a minute, okay? Because I'm like the last holdout, I think.
right.
So at least until next week when Google makes their announcement. But I'm wondering, given the kind of lackluster approach, adoption, enthusiasm around UWP, does Microsoft maybe regret allowing Android apps to run natively on the Windows mobile platform, the Windows Phone platform? And would anything be different now if they had way back when?
Okay, so when that happens, the issue was that those apps ran too well, right? They ran so well that it would obviate the need for any developer ever to make any work to adapt an Android app to the special features that are available in UWP/Windows Phone. That would undercut the platform. The platform is much bigger than just phone, and they had to kill it. And you know, we can sort of second guess any decision. We know what has happened since, but had they gone down that route, I mean, Windows Phone would it still survive? You know, would it be there? It's kind of hard to say, but it would be this thing that just ran Android apps, right?
Right.
So, yeah. Anyone else want to depress everybody?
Come on, Aiden.
Hey folks, Aiden from Ireland. How you all doing?
Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Yeah. So I can't get Zune or Cortana in my country. Sorry. Real question.
Yes.
Previous years, I've attended Tech Ed, Europe, North America.
By the way, just in case anyone doesn't know who you are, you're not just an average. You're somebody.
I'm not somebody. I'm nobody compared to you
Tell people
guys.
who you are. He's got an MVP
I'm a Microsoft
shirt on.
MVP, and I'm one of the writers on Petri.com.
There you go.
Covering Microsoft virtualization, cloud stuff.
You've been outed, sir. No, okay. Yes.
Yeah. Plant in the audience.
Yeah. I really like what you write, Paul. Yes.
So, attending these conferences the last whatever years, when Microsoft started releasing and pushing cloud, when you go to the keynotes and then day one, day two, it's cloud. And it's a couple of years since I've attended Ignite. Chicago was my last one. And I remember the first few days, I heard nothing but grumbling from people about where was the Windows Server stuff, where was the Exchange Server stuff. And this year it's so different. And I'm just wondering, have you heard the grumbling, or have you noticed the difference? Where people have kind of gotten onto the cloud bandwagon, if we call it that?
I mean, I think, by the way, it's partly that. But the other thing that's changed over the past 2 years is they actually give Windows Server lip service now, right? They've started the Insider program. They've started talking about their plans to actually rev those products, right? So they've stopped not mentioning on-prem, and I think that psychologically helps a lot. Everybody understands they have to move to the cloud in some capacity now. It's not like the holdouts we used to have. It will depend on the business you're in and regulations and so forth, but I think everybody kind of understands this.
I think though, I talked to a few people who are like, you know what, I was surprised. In day one, in the Nadella keynote, they didn't talk about SharePoint. They didn't talk about Windows Server, Azure Stack, SQL Server on Linux. And I think that's very intentional, right? Like the way they do this is Nadella comes in, gives the big picture world vision. Plus you have the Envision conference as part of this too, with people who are more like IT leaders and not developers and IT pros. So I think he does the big picture, and then right after that you have the 3 keynotes where they drill down more into the nitty gritty, and I think that's kind of the new way they do these big shows.
A lot of the server announcements and SharePoint announcements and stuff like that seem to be at the breakout sessions rather than during the big keynotes in the first morning.
Remember over the summer we were talking about how Microsoft was going to launch the next version of Server here. Okay.
Yep.
I mean, if it happened, they slipped it out a back door.
It's actually next month. We learned that in the last couple of days.
Right.
And we thought it was going to be yesterday or Monday.
You know what though? They used the word launch.
Yeah.
And for them, that doesn't mean release.
Yeah, it's not like it was in the past.
Right.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. See, that's the question. You don't get all depressing about Windows Phone. Oh, here he comes with a Windows Phone. All right.
Hi, Thomas from Denmark. Very glad to be here. Big fan of your show, by the way. I have a question for you, Paul.
Is it about Windows Phone?
No, it's an Xbox question.
Oh, good.
Okay.
Do you think we will see within a near future the new VR solution from Microsoft being integrated with the Xbox X?
I actually find it odd that they've never talked about this. When they first announced Windows Mixed Reality, which wasn't called that at the time, I thought this will be what's on Xbox One X, or actually both platforms. I do still believe that's going to happen. Maybe it's a holiday 2018 kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, it makes tons of sense. And you know, if you think about Xbox Play Anywhere and how you can develop games that run across both platforms, of course you could do VR games across both as well. So yeah, I do expect that.
I do have my Windows Phone.
I knew you did.
You did. How many Windows phones are here?
Oh boy.
A lot.
I'm never going to get out of here alive.
No, we're not.
Actually, Mary Jo, you do have a question from the chat room about that.
Okay.
And he keeps shouting
About
it
Windows
out.
Phone?
Well, yes, about Windows Phone, and that is if you think it's time for Microsoft to make an Android phone.
Oh, no. I do not. You know why? Microsoft doesn't want to be in the phone manufacturing business. Microsoft is a software and services
What's the advantage to it?
Right. There isn't one.
Okay, so let me throw up a theory. But I agree with you. You know, even Google doesn't sell that many phones. Google makes the platform.
Right.
Why would Microsoft want to do this?
No.
Well, what if this Microsoft Android thing enabled Continuum with Windows capabilities? You know, you never know. There are certain possibilities. But
I feel like they'd have a partner make that.
Yeah.
Like Samsung.
Oh, interesting.
Not them, though, because they just sold off all their factories that they got.
Well, no. You could make phones the way that
like
modern companies
they make
them. In other words, you don't have to have the facilities.
Yeah, true,
you could have other people manufacture it.
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't quite see it.
No.
Hi. I came out last year and watched the show live and asked the same question I was going to ask today, which is, at what point is Microsoft going to start telling a story about Cortana and home automation? And are they going to announce the Invoke at some point soon?
We think they're still doing the Invoke. It was on the stage in Day One keynote, and we think it's going to be this fall. I would say very soon. I don't have any insider information on that, but I would guess, maybe even around the time of the Fall Creators Update.
I agree.
Okay. And one other question, if I could. So I've noticed a lot of people talk about using Chrome as their browser because it's everywhere. You guys talked about using it to sync content across multiple devices. And do you think part of the problem with Edge is that it's Windows only? And do you see them ever developing it for iOS, developing it for Android, other than, maybe some of the technological hurdles, if they used, whatever HTML engine those platforms support, just to get it on the platforms to drive up adoption?
So do you mind if I just talk about the home automation thing really quick?
Yeah.
I don't remember who was in part of this discussion. You might have been there, Mary Jo, maybe Rich, but we were talking, and Brad actually, and we were talking about Cortana, and maybe what they're really doing is highlighting Cortana's enterprise capabilities, that this is something that might be in use in businesses more than in homes. Not that it couldn't come home, but maybe that integration with Alexa is what pushes it over the top in the home, and that the home automation stuff might ultimately come through that. But if they make the integration seamless enough, you'll never know or care, right? Because it has been kind of interesting that there hasn't been a lot of any of that, right? And then your second question, my take on that is just that I don't think it makes sense for Microsoft to make Edge for iOS and Android. That's a lot of engineering work, et cetera, and I don't think a lot of people would use it. But the problem's still there, and maybe there's a solution syncing through your Microsoft account to the back-end Google database so that you could use Chrome on those platforms, but use Edge on your computer, and it would sync the bookmarks, the form fill, the passwords, etc. So I think that makes more sense, but we don't know anything about their plans for either one of
And
us.
whenever we ask them, they out and out deny it. Like, I feel like if there was a chance of it, they'd leave the door open and say, like, never say never. But they're just like, no, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. You probably have a Windows phone too, don't you?
He does.
I knew it.
My name is Hobie Henning from Auburn University. And anyway, I work for a design college, and Microsoft is all about being the productivity company, and with Surface and whatnot. And there seems to be a big focus on like office productivity, but not really design productivity. So like Photoshop, InDesign, stuff like that.
Right.
One of the biggest benefits of the Mac, and a lot of the reasons our users end up going with it, is they start off with iLife and they kind of go up to the Adobe Suite. Has there been any more talk about like Groove music creation or like a bump to the Photos app? Because right now they're a little anemic.
A little?
Yeah.
So polite. No. And that's a long-time pet peeve of mine, right? That those apps are either non-existent, like Groove Music Maker, or are lackluster, like you said, which they are. I feel like Microsoft's UWP apps in Windows 10 should be hero apps that show other app developers how to do it right. And in some ways, if that's what they are, I mean, it's really just highlighting the weakness of the platform. I think they could be a lot better. But you're right, that's a big problem. Yeah. I suspect, I mean, I hope they don't keep using the creator's name, but it does seem like they're moving in that direction, but with new things. I sort of feel like they need to step back and focus on the fundamentals that are maybe more volume markets for creativity, like the things you're talking about, for sure. Yeah, the Surface Studio helps a little bit, I guess. But, yeah. Thank you.
The Windows Phone question, that was good.
Anybody else? It's not like you're standing between me and the airport, but if you have a question, come on down. It's cool. No.
Hey, Chris Bain, Orlando, Florida. So have you guys had a chance to check out the expo and walk around? What's your favorite swag, or do you just avoid it because you've been to so many conferences?
Oh, man. I don't want to carry anything else home.
Yeah, I literally avoid all swag. The first time I went to Comdex, I guess was the first big show, I walked around with a giant bag and I filled it full of paper. So by the time I got done with the first day of the show, I was probably lugging 75 pounds of brochures and whatever.
Yeah.
And you quickly kind of realize what a nightmare that is. So, you know, when we arrive here, like everybody, you go and you check in, you get your badge, and they give you like a backpack and whatever's in it. And I don't think I've taken that backpack from any show in about, I don't know, 5 years, you know, basically.
Yeah. What about you? Have you seen anything?
No, I think I'm kind of in the same place. I do a lot of these shows, so I got tired of taking stuff and leaving it in the hotel because I didn't want to pack it and fly home with it.
Yeah, my bag's going to explode over there. It's going to be like a...
There was one piece of amazing swag only in the press room.
Oh, that's true. Do I have that?
They were flavored marshmallows.
Oh, not the flavored marshmallows. No, they had the little Microsoft sign.
No, I don't care about the little Microsoft sign, but they had salted caramel marshmallows.
I can't. This is a cube of sugar.
It was delicious.
Covered in sugar.
Sorry.
You know, Paul, Mary Jo, there's a progression of swag hounding for people who have done a lot of these conferences. The first couple of conferences, the swag is amazing, and you want to bring it all home, and then you get to the point where you're like, why don't you just send that to me? Just mail it, because I don't want to carry it, and I don't want to
send it to someone else.
Precisely.
You know?
Precisely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They did have those cute little Microsoft signs. I thought those were nice.
I
went to great difficulty to steal 2 of those back when they weren't free, and now they've just given them away.
Yeah. Okay, anyone else?
So now you know that I steal things and I don't pay for breakfast.
And he hates marshmallows. What's wrong with him? Okay. I think we're out of questions.
Have we exhausted the questions?
I think we have.
Paul. Exhausted is the right word. Yes, sir.
Mary Jo, this has been phenomenal. This is anytime you get to be at a live event and actually have a live audience, there's an energy, it's a lot of fun. And thank you for bringing back all the news from Ignite. I really wanted to go this year, just couldn't make it work.
Yeah. Another time.
We got to do the full live event where the host from Twit is in the room with us at the show.
That would be great.
Precisely. Yeah. And we would have to have those marshmallows.
Yes.
I knew you were going to take her side.
Well, special foods at conferences. I will go for that. I don't want another T-shirt or another bag or another fluffy, blinky, whatever. But the food, I'll take.
But like a Rice Krispie treat or something, you'd be all over that?
Yes, absolutely. The simpler is the better. It's all comfort food. But of course, if you could tell our audience where they might find you, Paul, at Thurrott.com, what are you working on? Of course, you're probably going to be very heavy on Ignite coverage for a while.
Yeah, I still have a few interview things to publish, including that Skype team stuff, which I might do tonight on the flight home. But Yeah, right now I'm just focused on getting out of Orlando. No, it's I don't mean it's beautiful here. Sorry, let me rephrase that. I'm focusing on getting home to my beautiful wife, who I miss desperately.
Oh.
Yeah.
Are you going to tell her that you stole breakfast?
Yes, I am. She's very proud of me.
And Mary Jo, of course, they can find you at the All About Microsoft blog at ZDNet. What will be, I mean, you've already written quite a few stories about Ignite, but what's going to be your big blockbuster story? Just about how much you were disappointed in the Satya Nadella book, or what else is there?
I don't want that to come off as I was totally disappointed in the book. I think it's awesome he wrote a book. Steve Ballmer never wrote a book, right?
He should, by the way.
He should. I actually thought when I still had the idea I might write a book, the crazy thought I would write a book about Steve Ballmer. Then I came to my senses. No.
I still think.
No.
Okay.
No, I can't hear you.
You are much better when you're in the same room. It's much more fun.
Yeah, so I'm going to be doing some more Ignite coverage because I had a lot of interviews here that I still haven't published. Right. So more of that, and then on to the next thing.
Also, Mary Jo, thank you for not punching me this year. Last year at Ignite, she smacked me
so
hard
reason.
I almost fell out of my chair.
No, because there were flies in the room, and there was one on you.
And you missed it.
I missed it completely by accident.
Well, Paul, Mary Jo, again, thank you for bearing with me. Thank you for letting me sit in. By the way, Leo will be back next week. He's back from his
pictures
travels.
from Paris today, and I grumbled silently to myself.
Yeah.
Orlando, Paris.
Yeah, they're similar.
It's pretty much a wash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And thanks to all of you who came here.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, thank you to everyone who came to the meetup as well. I meant to say that up front. It was really nice that everyone came out and suffered through the 120-degree heat.
It was so hot.
Inside the restaurant.
Yeah,
but,
actually,
those things are always great.
Can they turn the camera around one more time just so we could see some of the audience members? Because, I mean, they've sat through the entire episode. They're good people.
I know.
They all have to say hello to their loved ones. There we go. Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for being here for this episode of and of course, Alex is always with the TriCaster magic.
There it is. Yep.
That does it for this episode of Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott.
It's amazing I haven't killed that kid.
I know.
Don't forget that you can always catch the show live on Wednesdays at 11 a.m. Pacific time, or watch it on demand at twit.tv/WW. I'm Father Robert Ballecer, the digital Jesuit, in for Leo Laporte. Until next time, have a great day, and don't forget to take your Windows Weekly.